Welcome to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. I'm your host for this session. I'm Sean.
And I'm Kevin.
And together we're going to talk about a unique problem that you might be having in your sales process and your sales world. This 15 minutes is designed for salespeople, sales managers, and CEOs of the company that are trying to increase their revenue and trying to be more productive in your sales processes. So let's get started. I like to talk about when we sell, we are transferring trust from ourselves. We trust our product, we trust our company, but we're going to transfer that trust to the prospect. We're going to have the prospect trust us meaning the product, the company, and ourselves, enough that they're going to make a decision in our favor in the time frame that we want them to make that decision. That's the goal of sales, is to transfer that trust, have them make a decision that we want them to make in the time frame we want. As we get close to the end of the year, we want those decisions to happen in this fiscal year. Most of our clients, most people we talk to, have a fiscal year that equals the calendar year. When you're listening to this will be probably sometime in September, and quite likely you're trying to transfer that trust and get that trust going to the point that it's going to happen in September or before the end of the year. I like to talk to my clients and my customers and my salespeople that there's three things that you sell, and I just listed them. You sell your company, you sell your product, and you sell yourself. Let's kind of focus in, because we want to do this fast. Let's focus in on personal branding of the salesperson. And how can the sales leader help his or her salespeople develop that personal brand so that that trust happens faster? We already know that we have to transfer trust about the product and the company. That's a given. But the key thing that makes it all go faster is I trust the salesperson that what they're saying is going to be good stuff, that's going to not mislead me. It's going to lead me down the right path and help me make decisions. I think one of the first things that you need to do as a salesperson, and sales leaders need to help with this, is to build out a presence that makes you feel like you are in control of your business, that you understand what the business is all about, and you can understand the benefits of what your product does, what your service does to the business of our customer. One of the ways you're going to do that is by references. And you don't have to give a list of references of all your buddies to your customer. All you really have to do is ask all of your friends, all of your network. All you really have to do is ask your former employers, your former customers, your existing customers to give you a reference on LinkedIn. That's good enough, because then the customer can go to that LinkedIn page, see that you have 10 references. They can reach out to any one of those very simply if they want to. And that's the first beginnings of building that personal brand. But that's just the beginning, because I think you need to understand how to relate the problem that you're solving with your product to the business problems that your customer has. And that's part of your brand.
You really hit the high notes there. I think that it's probably good for me just to feed this back to you, because what you just laid out there was key for every salesperson and sales leader to hear. To build trust early, you have to be referenceable. How are you referenceable? Well, you should have a personal brand, a way for someone to see around the relationship that you're bringing to them. The first time you and I met, we had a immediate trust building. There was a high degree of trust the first time we met. And it was partly because we had shared experiences, but largely because we were able to check each other out on LinkedIn and other social media type platforms. So we had that immediate backstory. So that's part of a personal brand. We were current. It wasn't the first time where we had 8 followers on our LinkedIn profile and no relevant posts and only had liked and no comments on people's content. So we had a flavor of sorts. We knew a little bit about each other enough to say, oh, I see you did this. This is interesting. Tell me about that. We were able to generate part of our conversation, not just out of thin air, but because of our personal brand that we had available to the world. People could, commercially find us, so to speak. For sales leaders, how are you approaching every salesperson to ensure that they are building that personal brand? If your personal professional brand is one thing and then you go to another social media platform, and you find that there's something diametrically opposite there, that is actually the net of your personal brand is the combination of those two. Even though you might say, oh, that's a social and that's a professional, they're different. Well, that's fine that you think that. But when I go to look at you as a potential employee, if you're going to sell for me, I'm looking at both. And the customer and prospects that we work with, they're looking at both too. It's really important for all sales leaders to make sure that they are communicating what a personal brand should look like for their salespeople, not prescriptively, but from the standpoint or vantage point of, hey, this is our best foot forward. If people don't know anything about us, this is what they're referencing. For every prospect that you meet that you've worked so hard to go and cultivate a first meeting, a first conversation, they're probably going to check you out and do a Google search on you or something. So that personal brand should support you being a subject matter expert, that you know about your industry and you know about what is driving and changing your industry and influencing it externally, so that they know that taking this meeting with you, they're not wasting their time.
One of the things that I coach salespeople on when I am the VP of sales for a company, because I'm understand that I'm a fractional VP of sales. I come in and I manage the sales teams. For all the sales leaders out there, you're just like me, except you're not doing that on a fractional basis. One of the first things I say to salespeople is, does your LinkedIn profile look like you are looking for a job? Does it look like a resume, or does it look like you are with this company and you are an expert in what this company does? Even if it's a brand new salesperson, brand new person to the company, been there 3 months, obviously there's more stuff about what you were than what you are because now you're at a new company. But I want you to immediately turn off all the things about I'm looking for a job. Instead, you are out there trying to help your clients. Your about section of LinkedIn isn't about how you're a hard worker and how you do this and how you do this and what you do in your free time. You can have a little bit of that in there, but more than anything, it's about whatever your product does for your prospects. That's what your about section should have in it. And you need to spend time fleshing that out. I also think it's important when you walk in the door, do you look like a business person or do you look like a salesperson? Some of you might remember Herb from WKRP in Cincinnati. And just so everybody out there in listener land knows, Kevin and I do record these sessions in Cincinnati. This is a little bit too close to home for us, but that's okay. But Herb wore these very flashy outfits. He wore the gaudy jackets. That was common back in that day. Most of you are probably not doing that. But do you look professional when you walk in the door? And some of you may say, gee, I don't have to wear a jacket in my job. And a fair way of analyzing, are you dressed professionally? Do you look like a professional businessman? Do you look like the person you're talking to? Do you look like his boss? Because you want to look like his boss, not necessarily like him. You are going to get forced into a bucket or forced into a box in that person's mind of, is this person like me or is this person like my manager? Do I have immediate respect for this person because they walk in with respect, they walk in with power, they walk in with grandiosity, they look like they belong, they look like they are running the company? That's what you want to look like as a salesperson. Now, you might be a very young salesperson, and therefore you just don't have the age, the gray hair that makes that a reality. But that's okay. You can still walk in with clean clothes on. You can still walk in with a jacket on if that makes sense in your industry. You can still walk in with a long sleeve shirt rather than a short sleeve shirt. You can not be displaying your tattoos if you have a tattoos. In fact, I would encourage you, don't display your tattoos as much as possible, because you want to look like you are a banker, that you are in charge, that you are there to help and you are going to make your prospect better. That is part of your personal brand. Now, I just made fun of tattoos, and maybe I want to walk that back a little bit. Maybe that is okay in your industry. I don't know. Everybody's in a different industry. However, you rarely see a professional CEO that's displaying their tattoos unless they are in a very unique industry that's a big deal, like a restaurant or a bar. That's just not acceptable typically in a B2B fashion. So if you want to have tattoos, that's fine, but let's try to cover them up with a piece of cloth as much as possible. But walk in, look good, be clean shaven, be clean cut with your hair. Look like you belong. Don't look like a kid, even if you are young. Look like you belong and you are in charge and you know what you're doing, because that will immediately set the tone that you are above most of the people that have walked in.
It's interesting, and I know we're going to get some pushback on the tattoos and that because it's becoming more socially acceptable. But regardless of the acceptability of that kind of personal appearance, know that buyers have opinions, and I think that's really where we're going here. Is that we're trying to set ourselves up for success by influencing the level of trust that we immediately can command, and the presence in the room. I think speaks very much to that. You walk in, head up, smiling. I have rarely, if ever, bought from someone on a high ticket item that wasn't smiling. If you are not a pleasant, not super flowy, but your personal brand should be approachable. If you're not approachable, if you're standoffish, there's tons of examples of how that can backfire on you. We're getting a little prescriptive here, but personal branding is really important for salespeople because you are the face of the company, the product, and you're also developing your own personal brand. 9/10 of the law is perception, right? But being perceived positively, put together, that you know what you're talking about, that you're building that trust. And trust, if anybody out there has ever met me, I talk about trust as a currency. When you make a relationship deposit, you're depositing what amounts to trust in a relationship bank account. And after you've deposited enough trust, you will earn the right to ask a hard question at closing or to have a disagreement with someone about what you see as scope and what that scope is actually valued at. So at the end of a deal, you've got to, at some point, talk about money. If you're talking about money very early in the process, you're in a transactional sale. That's not the kind of selling Sean and I are talking about here. We're talking about building personal brand that allows you to negotiate at the right time with the right people. Your personal brand, if you have appointed it well, will allow you the opportunity in that negotiation to say things like, this is our price. We have given you a fair price. It is a good scope matched to a good outcome that we have designed together, and this is how much it costs. Typically, you could say everybody wants a deal, but our personal brand, our expertise, our insights, that's what people are paying for. So when you want to build that lifelong buyer, lifetime value of a customer, when you build that up, it starts with your personal brand. It starts with that first meeting.
I completely agree with that. And in fact, I want to build on that a little bit more. Kevin, a few weeks ago in this podcast, you said something, and I'm not going to quote you correctly, but you talked about the emails that we all have gotten lately about, do you want to have 10,000 names that people that buy red cars, blah, blah, blah. So we all get those emails and they're disgusting because they haven't built a personal brand. I don't know that person that's reaching out. Now, if somebody says to me, and they know me, and they've worked with me in the past, and we've developed a relationship, and they come to me and they said, I think there's a way that you can get another 500 leads. And I go, really? How? Because now he's actually talking, or she is talking in a way from experience, from trust. I already have a relationship with that person. So one of the ways that you build your brand is, don't start the conversation out with a pitch when you first walk in the door, when you first get them on the phone. Instead, start your brand with empathy and curiosity. In other words, how are you doing, Mr. Customer, Mr. Prospect? Tell me about your business. Or, I saw this on your website. You're curious. You've already been to their website before you walked in the door, before you got them on the phone. I saw this on your website. Can you explain that to me a little bit? Because I'm not sure I quite understood how that worked or why that was important to your customers. I'm not sure how that is an issue that you're trying to solve for your customers. Not that you are trying to replace that product, not that you are trying to say that what your client or prospect is doing wrong, but you are curious about their business. The more you understand your client's business, the bigger your brand will be. And you should also come back to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, this podcast, because we do this every Tuesday, and we try to give advice to sales leaders and salespeople on how to be successful.
And that's a wrap. Thanks again for joining Kevin and Sean on Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. Tune in every Tuesday, or when our podcast drops every Tuesday at 4:30, wherever you consume your podcast. And don't miss our monthly CEO workshop, where we unpack some of the big CEO questions facing your business. Until next time, we're looking forward to seeing you. Happy selling.